too late in stopping the spread of the coronavirus. I mean, the death toll has already surpassed the 2003 SARS outbreak. And now so many people are being affected by it. This dream vacation for some Americans turned into a nightmare when they were forced into quarantine on a cruise ship in Japan. That's because health officials there confirmed 135 cases of the virus on board. But what are your rights as a passenger if there is some sort of health emergency on a cruise ship, airline, whatever it is? Joining me now via Skype is maritime attorney Michael Winkleman. Michael, thanks for being with me. You know, we ask this question because people have lives, they have families, they have children, jobs, all of these things that you can't be away for 2 weeks. What can you do if there's a health emergency? Do you have any rights?
You do, Lynn. Unfortunately, if you're stuck in that unfortunate situation where there's an outbreak, you're really in a bad space. You have a right to basics, food, water, working sanitation, things of that nature. You also have a right to timely updates. But if you're, these folks that are on the ship off the coast of Japan, it's a bad situation for them, no question about it, and there's not much that they can do. But I think the good news is this is really a tiny minority of cruise ship passengers. I mean, there's been 135 cruise ship passengers infected versus 40,000 that are infected globally. So I think there's a bit of an unfounded fear as it relates to the cruise ship industry.
Yeah, and when you go and look at some of those rights that you talked about, like sanitation, running water, things like that, what do you do if you're in a situation? I mean, we always talk about maybe a plane being stuck on a tarmac. Is this situation kind of like that on steroids?
Oh, well, so years ago, there was the famous Carnival Triumph disaster where the engines broke down and folks were stuck on that ship without water, without power, without running sanitation. They were stuck in there for about 3 days in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. We successfully represented a significant number of them in a class action against Carnival. As a result of that, developed the Cruise Ship Passenger Bill of Rights, which gives you rights to updates, sanitation, things of that nature. But again, Lynn, I would stress that I think there's a good amount of hype around this, and particularly as it relates to the cruise industry. This is one of the few areas where there actually is tight regulation by the CDC. They have what's called the VSP, which is the Vessel Sanitation Program. So I know, even though I sue cruise lines for a living, I know that they work tirelessly to try to keep people from getting sick. You deal with norovirus outbreaks all the time, so they have very tight policies and procedures. I think when you apply that in this situation, I think the chances of getting sick on a cruise are pretty slim. My advice to people would be, don't go anywhere near China as it relates to a cruise, but if you're cruising in the U.S. or elsewhere, I think you're safe.
And what about if you don't know where other passengers have been, though? It sounds like you're not advising people against taking those trips that they already have planned when it comes to cruises.
Sure, that's certainly true, Lynn. Look, but I think you would deal with that anytime you get on a plane, anytime you get on any kind of confined environment. You never know where those other people have been. I think certainly that's why we should, in a time like this, wash our hands a lot, try to take care of our immune system, things of that nature. But, this is a pretty disastrous thing for the cruise industry because I think people are so afraid of going on cruises when you have something like this. And it's probably one of the worst places you could be. Having said that, I do think it's a tiny fraction of what's going on globally.
Thanks for putting in perspective. Michael Winkleman, good to have you. Take care. Ahead, anti-vaxxers allegedly